Ladies and gentlemen, joining us now is a man who you know and have heard about. A movie about his life, Inside Game, opens nationwide on Friday, November 1st. I can't wait to chat with him, especially with sports gambling becoming legal nationwide. I don't think there's a better human to chat with about it. Ladies and gentlemen, former NBA referee Tim Donaghy. Tim, thanks for joining us.
Yes.
How often do you get a round of applause whenever you're introduced?
Not too often.
Okay, Tim, for those that don't know Tim Donaghy, he was an NBA official who was actually caught kind of cooking books, setting lines, making things happen in the sports gambling world. Now a movie about it all is coming out on Friday, November 1st. My first question is, Tim, how did this all start? Were you a sports gambler to begin with and then you got presented an opportunity, or was it just like kind of out of nowhere and your life took a complete turn out of nowhere?
Kind of out of nowhere. I was gambling at golf courses, playing cards in the locker room, running down to Atlantic City with a bunch of buddies. Then I started, sports gambling on college and pro events, eventually spilled over to the NBA and eventually NBA games that I was officiating. With that being said, we would do it and we would stop. We would do it and we would stop. And one time when we stopped, what I didn't know, that information was being passed along to people associated with organized crime. And when I went into Philadelphia to referee a game, one of their associates came down and visited me and told me that he had known that I had been doing this in the past. He was getting the plays, wanted to continue to get the plays, or he was going to expose me to the NBA for gambling, or worse yet, have somebody visit my wife or kids in Florida. So with that, I continued to give this guy the picks, and I was hoping by the end of the basketball season it would be done and forgotten and he would never approach me again. But at the end of the season, it was heard over Gambino wiretap and the FBI started an investigation.
Okay, so you were just doing this with like friends, like, hey, the games that I'm reffing, I think we can probably do some things if we really need to. And then someone in your tight circle kind of leaked it to a much bigger fish. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes.
Do you hate that friend that leaked it to the higher ups there?
Hey, listen, I'm not happy about anything, but when you look in the mirror, you really have nobody to blame but yourself. I really did some dumb things. I made some poor choices, and I really can't blame anybody but myself.
Okay, so everybody, as somebody who didn't play basketball growing up, I grew up in Pittsburgh, which didn't have an NBA team, but I was a sports fan, so I kind of understood it. With the way the rules are, there was always the thought, like, oh, refs could definitely control how many points are being scored here, just because of the little touch fouls and things here and there. Then when your story came out, it kind of captivated everybody. They're like, we knew it. Fuck it. We knew that this was happening forever. Do you think you were the only person that's ever done this?
No, in fact, I don't know if you've ever heard this name, Michael Franzese, who was a captain in the Colombo crime family who has left the mob and has since become a preacher, said that in the 1990s, he had 3 NBA refs on his personal payroll and none of them were named Tim Donaghy. So I definitely wasn't the only one passing information along. There were others that were definitely doing it.
Do any of the other refs on your crew knew that you were doing it, or is this literally a lone wolf operation? Or was anybody else on the crew like, hey, Tim, what the fuck is going on here?
No, nobody said a word, and they really portray that great in the movie where they show what I did and how I do it. Eric Mabius does a great job in playing that part, along with Scott Wolf and Will Sassa. So Will Sassa plays Batista, who was the guy that was associated with the mob, and he just does an unbelievable job in playing Batista. And I would be shocked if he didn't get some kind of an award.
Did you Will Sassa is going to win an Oscar for this thing?
I don't know if he win an Oscar. I don't know what awards they give out for movies, but he really did.
Nice.
Will Sasso. I know Will Sasso from In Living Color. Is that right?
Mad TV.
Mad TV. And then his vines were next level.
That's great.
He's going to win a Academy Award for his portrayal in Inside Game, which premieres Friday, November 1st. I'm excited for that. Was it a little PTSD for you to re-experience the entire thing that kind of took down your entire career while making this movie?
Absolutely. It was embarrassing back in 2007 when I got caught. It's just as embarrassing today to watch the movie on the big screen. So, it shows a lot of poor choices that I made, a lot of poor choices Tommy Martino made and Batista. And, with that, we affected a lot of people other than ourselves, and that's the people we love the most, and that's our family. And that's a great message that's in the movie, and that's one of the reasons why I got involved.
Were you married at the time?
I was, and now I'm happily divorced. So it's funny because they said, did anything good come from this whole situation? And I said, one good thing is, they're making donations to a school called Elwyn, which is a school for mentally and physically challenged boys in Springfield, Pennsylvania. And I got divorced. And when I said that to the guy that I got divorced, he looked at me like he didn't know if I was kidding or not, but I was dead serious.
Sam, obviously you did some despicable things. I mean, the thought of a ref jeopardizing the integrity of a game is catastrophic to the game in of itself. I mean, a lot of people know that. I'm happy you've kind of recognized your mistakes and moved forward. But to go back to your mistakes, I mean, I feel bad about this. I really do, that this is what I have to pepper you about. But
I'm a big boy. I can take it.
Okay, good. I have so many
questions. Let's not forget, it's going to be out in the movie theaters in about a week, so everyone's going to see it.
Okay, true. So, all right, well, you said it. Whenever you got started, did you get a rush out of it? Did you enjoy it?
Absolutely. I love the adrenaline of gambling, whether it was on the golf course, at the casinos. There were times where I was sitting at blackjack tables where people were winning or losing $50,000 to $100,000. So, I played and hung with a lot of big-time gamblers, so definitely the rush was something I enjoyed.
My friend Diggs here, who's a complete degenerate, sent me some stats here. That was very, very interesting. The first 15 games of the 2006-2007 NBA season that was refereed by you had a significant enough betting to move the point spread by 1.5 points or more, and they were all perfect against Vegas. Was there any thought by you or Batista or Martino to be like, maybe we should fuck one or two up here so they don't get on our case? Or were you guys just loving the amount of cash that was coming in?
No, we were rolling in it, and there was a period where I write in my book that I think we lost 3 in a row. And, Batista was getting a little antsy, even though we were, winning at an 80% clip. And I was afraid that I was going to come home after a 12-day trip after we just lost 3 in a row, and my dog Zoe was going to be hanging from a tree. But, he was so pissed off after 3 in a row, even though we were really winning so many.
So you said that it was discovered in the Gambino wiretap. I heard another story that it was actually Vegas who saw how much this certain gambler was winning that actually uncovered it. Have you heard anything of that nature, or you set on that it was the Gambino wiretap that eventually exposed you?
All I know is, I had to be a cooperating witness for the government with the FBI. I've talked to a lot of FBI agents. They told me it was heard over a wiretap. Batista was down $7 million gambling. Then he started, getting involved with me to recover that money, and he was able to get it back. And he was just doing so many drugs and talking on the phone. He ran his mouth, and it was heard over a Gambino wiretap.
This dude stunk at gambling. Down how much was he gambling on your games?
Hundreds of thousands of dollars, and he got that $7 million back quick. So it's all portrayed great in the movie. I'm telling you, Will Sasso does an unbelievable job.
There's an old saying that pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered, and it feels like the crime organizations don't really live by that on numerous occasions, and this would be one. Batista, is that just his first and last name, or is that just how the guy operates? And is he still alive, and are you going to be a dead man because of all of this?
James Baba Batista is his name, and he is still alive. He's still doing what he did back when we got caught, and he's still booking bets, and he's still doing everything that he did before. I'm in Sarasota, Florida, and he's in outside Philadelphia. So
should you be saying where you're at right now? I've seen enough mob movies. I grew up in an Italian city of Pittsburgh. I feel like this is something you should be sweating more than you currently are.
Hey, it is what it is. I did what I did. I'm still here after 10 years, and hopefully I'll be here for another 10.
Look at the gut sack on this guy, man. All right. So a lot of people are wondering, with nationwide sports gambling being okayed, how easy it is to corrupt each game, whether it's through the players or through the referees. Do you see that being a potential issue now that there's going to be literally billions of dollars gambled every single week, almost on every single sporting event, federal regulated wise?
Absolutely. When you look at some of these kids that are in college, okay, they're not making it to the NFL. They're not making it to the NBA. They're playing lower Division I basketball or football. it's easy for somebody to go up to them and say, hey, listen, here's 20, 25 grand, and go take care of your family. The line's 15. Don't win by 15. Win by 11, 12, 13, even 14. Win the game. Just don't cover the spread. I think that's where you're going to see the next scandal for sure is in college sports, to where, some of these kids that aren't as well off as they would like to be are going to take that money and take that opportunity.
How about referees, especially with the fact that most of them aren't full-time and things like that? There was a rumor going around that one particular NFL ref, there was a gambler that was gambling on his game here the first 6 weeks and winning significantly. Do you think other sports have this same problem, not just basketball?
I do. I think gambling's prevalent throughout the United States. I think people love the action of gambling, and I think if they have a buddy who's an official, the littlest edge they can get, they're going to do it. But I also think that the NFL refs, the NBA refs make a lot of money. I think they're more educated now than they were back when I was doing it. So I find it hard to believe at that level it would get done. But I think at the college level, you're going to see people associated with organized crime get to somebody, and it's going to be exposed. They're probably already getting to them now, but they just haven't been caught.
Okay, so was there ever a game where you and another ref were working against each other?
No, because what I did was I would be in meetings in the morning or before the game, and I knew, if a referee was going to target a certain player, positive or negative, and I would just pass that information along, and I wouldn't go the other direction of that. I would just do what that other ref was going to do within the course of set of the rules.
So you would have a direct call right to Batista, or your guy would go to Batista? Did you have a direct line to the Gambino crime family every single day of your life while working as an NBA ref?
Just Tommy Martino, who was the middle guy who dealt with Batista. And that's, how it plays out in the movie. They show that I meet with Batista that first time at the Marriott Hotel. From there, we're never going to speak again. And I'm going to go through Tommy and pass the picks along to Tommy. And Tommy would pass them along to Batista. And the money would come from Tommy.
That is so interesting. I mean, just the thought too, like the money train you guys were on there for a while had to feel so damn good. But I would have just assumed that somebody's going to think like, we should at least start maybe losing a little bit. But then once they start saying, hey, we're going to continue to do this or your family's going to disappear. I mean, that then you become in a spot where you're fucking stuck. Like even if you wanted to do the right thing, you would have never, ever, ever had the chance to do the right thing.
And that's what the FBI agent said. They said, when did you think this was going to stop? I said, I was hoping at the end of this year it was going to be the end of it. And they said they never would have released you from the claws that they had into you. You would have been doing it till you were dead, till they killed you.
Were the FBI guys, did they understand gambling, or were they kind of new to the whole thing and didn't really fully understand the racket?
They, after they sat down with me and I told them everything I did and how I did it, they shook their head and really didn't believe me. 2 weeks later, after they flew around the whole country, interviewed coaches and players and former referees, they realized what I was telling them was the truth. And really they understood that the NBA had a major problem on their hands with how they were doing business.
Did Batista say anything rude about you on that wiretap, or was it just that we got a guy named Tim Donaghy? Was he like, we got this little scumbag Tim Donaghy? Did he talk any shit on that wiretap that made you go, this Batista guy, bad guy?
No, he just said he had an NBA referee in his hip pocket, and from that conversation, they were able to backtrack everything and link it from Batista to Martino to me.
So it came out last week again. I guess it was in your book. What was the situation with the Spurs Phoenix Suns series where you said the Suns were the better team, but you guys had the Spurs taking it all along? Is that right?
Yeah, what happened was Tommy Nunes was the supervisor of officials for that playoff series. He lived in Phoenix. He hated Robert Starver, who lived in Phoenix, who was the owner of the Phoenix Suns. And with that being said, he dictated to the referees what to call and what not to call. He loved going back to San Antonio. He loved the nightlife in San Antonio. He loved leaving his wife at home.
Who was this?
He wanted San Antonio to advance. So with that being said, he concentrated for the referees on what to call and what not to call, and it was always in favor of the San Antonio Spurs.
Who was doing this?
Tommy Nunes, who worked for the NBA and was the supervisor of officials for that playoff series at the time.
So does the NBA get involved with calls? I mean, granted, you've been out for a while now, but they all have their little headphones on, their earpieces on, and there's always calls that seem to favor the big-time stars in critical games of the NBA. Does the NBA have their hands in those types of decisions?
Absolutely. When you look at the NBA during the playoffs, they send a representative in and you watch the games. And when a team is down 3-0 in the series, they show you film of the previous 3 games and they tell you what to look for and what to concentrate on. And what they do is they program and train those referees to make calls for that team that's down in the series. So it doesn't become a sweep. It goes from 3-0 to 3-1, maybe 3-2, generates a lot more revenue and income for the entire league.
The NBA hates you, huh?
What can I do?
As you were saying that, literally, I was like, oh my God, they have to absolutely hate him for saying this type of stuff. Like, this is not something that normally gets out, these types of comments. That's why you're such an anomaly in this whole thing.
Right, and it plays out in the movie really well. And, like I said before, the movie's got a great message about choices and how we all made some really dumb and stupid choices and how it affected our families and ourselves. And it was just devastating for everybody involved.
Do you still gamble?
No, I do have a website where I consult with people who do gamble so that they, stay away from a lot of the pitfalls and traps that can be associated with gambling.
Are you following any referees in basketball right now in college or in the NBA that you think could potentially be on the hook somewhere?
I don't think that they're on the hook, but definitely there's some referees in the NBA that have some trends and have problems or have relationships, positive or negative, that spill out onto the court in the NBA.
Referees have such a big-time influence on games, and I think you were a picture of that. It's happening even more so now in all sports. Refs can control games. That's just a factual statement.
There's so much subjectivity in the game, and the problem is that the rules aren't enforced as they're written in the rule book. They officiate the names on the front and back of jerseys, and even in the NFL, you'll see if anyone even gets near Tom Brady, the flags come flying out. But some of these younger second, third string quarterbacks can get tackled around the knees or wrapped around the head and the flags don't come out. So until the sports leagues enforce the rules as they're written in the rule book and leaves the names on the front and the back of the jerseys out of it, I think you're always going to have the fans that are going to say, why?
Okay, so if you were to travel back in time to 2004 before this all started and have a conversation with young Tim Donaghy, you would say to him, hey, there's about to be an incredible temptation. Don't do it. I assume, is that what you would say? How do you stop future refs from doing what you did?
Absolutely. Just take a look at my life and see the damage that I caused not only to myself but to my family, the embarrassment that I caused the league and my other refereeing partners. So it was definitely detrimental in so many different ways in what I did and what I got involved with, who I was hanging out with. And, unfortunately, I can't turn back time. I certainly wish I could, but I can't.
What do you do now?
Right now, I'm involved in real estate. I manage rental properties, and I have my website, refpicks.com, and I'm doing a lot of marketing for the movie.
Good for you, Tim. I mean, I assume there was a pretty heavy rock bottom. Did you do jail time?
I did. I did 15 months in a federal prison. I went in there, and I was a cooperating witness for the government, so I had a big stamp on my forehead. I was attacked in prison by a guy who claimed to be associated with the Gambino crime family, and he did damage to my knee. I've had 2 operations on my knee to try to alleviate that pain, but it's something I'm just going to have to live with.
They took your knee out? Like literally took you out at the knees?
They did.
You Italians, bro. You just can't help it.
Oh, don't turn on us. So,
did you ref basketball games in the prison?
oh, great question.
No, but it's funny. They did ask me to do that, and I have to have a job. And there's a gym, and they play games at night, and they did ask me to referee the games, but I turned that down.
You're like, yeah, my knee hurts, bro.
What did you do in there then? You just wrote, kind of stuck to yourself, I assume?
I tried to. I worked in the kitchen, and I kept my head down for 15 months, and I'm fortunate that I got out of there alive.
I've seen Locked Up and other shows about prison. And by the way, it looks terrible in there. I'm not saying that you didn't deserve it, by the way. I assume you did because of everything that happened. But making it out of that, I mean, your story is such a deep one. This all comes from your book that I assume people can buy now?
Yeah, it's on Amazon.com. It's still out there. And, not only was I in prison, I got thrown in the hole for, supposedly being out of bounds for 15 days, and they fed me through a slot in the door. So Prison's no joke. Even when they talk about being in these country club prisons, you get into that system and it's just impossible to get out of.
What did you do? What, were you cooking those basketball games in prison? You got sent down to the hole?
I was supposed to be somewhere. I was at the gym, and when I got back, they said I was out of bounds. They shackled and handcuffed me and threw me in a county jail and put me in solitary confinement for 15 days.
Paul Crew.
Yep.
Can't. What does that mean, out of bounds? There's like rules where you're supposed to be and where you're not supposed to be? Is that type of...
Yes.
Oh, my gosh. Tim, I know you have a heart out here. You got somewhere to go. I feel like I have so many questions. I just... were you ever... No. Do you even eat at like Italian restaurants anymore? Just out of fear of potential of them showing up?
All the time. I love Italian food. I just make sure I'm facing the door. I can see who's coming in.
Tim, that's smart, man. You made a massive mistake. You paid your dues. You're back on the other side of it. I hope the movie does well. Inside Game? The Inside Game or just Inside Game?
Just Inside Game. Inside
Game coming out Friday, November 1st. I can't wait to watch this. Vine's Will Sasso is going to win an Academy Award for that. That is awesome. That is beautiful. I think a lot more people are educated and knowledge on this on this system because of you, by the way. So granted, your life had to take quite a fall for everybody else to learn about this, but the same thing happened for Pete Rose. When you walk into an NFL locker room, when you walk into a professional locker room, all it says is don't be Pete Rose, basically. I would assume the refs are doing the same thing for you. It always takes that one to kind of learn from.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it wasn't an easy ride. I'm lucky I'm in the position I'm in. I have great friends and great family, and I was able to get through it.
Was there any scary moments during the season while you're doing it? Only at the end whenever you try to get out?
No, I mean, everything went so good because we won, at an enormous clip, and we were riding high. It wasn't until after the season was over that I got exposed. I was on the golf course, and Tommy Martino called me and said the FBI had been at his house 3 times. So that's when I knew I was in a lot of trouble.
How was your golf game that particular day? Probably terrible, if I had to guess. It's a lot of in-between years.
I didn't even play. I was a 4 handicap. I just had a brand new set of ping irons. I didn't even hit them. I threw them back in the bag and went home.
Did any coaches or players say to you, Tim, you're definitely on some shit right now. This is a terrible... Did any coaches or players catch on to it?
Never. Nobody ever said a word.
Good for you, I guess, man. If you're going to do it, at least do it in a sly way. I mean, the FBI caught you, but no players or coaches. That would be the first thing I think, like the coaches or players would be like, this motherfucker's cooking. There's no way that is the call. The fact that didn't have it is pretty impressive. Can't wait to see the movie. Can't wait to see Will Sasso. Happy you're on the other side of this selling the hell out of some real estate, man. Refpicks.com?
Yes.
Are you pretty good? Do you make good selections or?
Absolutely.
Really?
80%?
80%?
Not 80%. Not that good anymore, unfortunately.
Let's say I have a friend who's like $7 million or so in debt. You think maybe we go to refpicks.com, really turn them on?
Send them my way. I'll help them.
You have a proven track record. Ladies and gentlemen, Tim Donaghy. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Cheers, man.